And we're live. Welcome to yet another coronavirus edition of PCS Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I'm the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. With us today, as always, we have our lovely Megan Harless. She is the resident PCS reform advocate. And oh, by the way, as I say every week, our resident BA censored for little ears in your room. We have a great, exciting, extremely cray-cray topic today for you. We're talking all things claims with this lovely individual named Kira, but before we get to her, we're just going to go over our housekeeping items as we do every week. Here we go, peeps. Now, we bring experts like Kira on for you just to give you the answers. Me and Megan, we come here just for you because we got the answers. If we don't have the answers, we know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, we're going to take your questions for action and get back to you with an answer. Next up, we do have these resources and we do have this knowledge and we bring these experts to you, but there are some times where you're going to experience a specific situation that is only applicable to you and your family. So in those specific situations, there are forever and always your resources will be, number one, your local chain of command, and number two, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can further your issues and move it up the chain for action. Last and certainly not least, we got to flatten the curve, people. We have got to flatten that curve. We've got to flatten the curve. We got to do our part. We got to do our part to flatten the curve, especially now that our littles, depending on where you're living, are going back to school, aren't going back to school, which, by the way, we're going to get with some education experts on that one soon. But we got to do our part because when we flatten that curve, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. You hear me? Murphy, you're on notice. We are coming for you. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan for those DoD updates. Megan? You're on mute, babe.
Can you hear me now?
Get away, Murphy. Yes, we can hear you now. Restart.
Okay. So just a few things for you this week. The first thing is that the DoD has released an updated green list of installations, those that meet the criteria to be green. So we will get that link posted below for you. So that does mean exception to policies are still needed for some locations. I know several of you have been working through them and experiencing some issues with them. They need to go through your losing chain of command as well as your gaining installation as well. But we'll drop those links and all that information in the comments below. A couple of things just to reiterate on is that as soon as you receive your hard copy orders, to go ahead and log into DPS through move.mil and go ahead and set up your move. Being able to do that as soon as possible gives your transportation office time to be able to find a transportation service provider to take your move, and also gives that assigned company time to plan your move so they can staff it accordingly and to put it in their queue so that way they aren't trying to squeeze you in last minute because you decided to wait on it. So as soon as you get your hard orders, go ahead and set that move up. Another thing to remind you on, for especially those families that are going to be PCSing Oconus, don't forget to check your flight information before you show up for your flight, especially if you are going by the Patriot Express or some other means. Double check your itinerary, double check, give them a call before you show up. We've seen some flights get canceled, some other itineraries get changed around. And also if you're traveling with your pets, ensure that they are booked through all the way to your destination. If they are traveling with you commercial or on the Patriot Express or by some other means. Also, we are starting to see that a lot of folks, a lot of families are starting to receive their household goods, which is great. But don't forget to close out your move at the very end by filling out that customer service satisfaction survey. You can find that. It's on DPS. It's attached to your move. It says complete survey here. You click that link, a couple of questions, takes a few minutes. But that survey is very important because that's how Transcom really gets a picture of how the season went and what your experience was. And that way they know if there's changes that need to be made with that as well. So don't forget, fill out that survey because it's very, very important. And the last thing is, speaking of Transcom and changes and things, we're starting to seek feedback from families about changes that they want to see implemented over the next year, things that we can improve upon within the process. And so we are looking for that feedback. So if you've got things that you want to see changed or improved, drop them in the comments below, or go and join our group Lost During My PCS. And you'll see that there's several posts in there with several questions seeking feedback on various different things so we can be able to provide that to Transcom, to the services, to the moving industry to better improve this process going down the road and for next year. So that's all I've got right now. So I'll throw it back to you, MJ.
Awesome. Thank you for those DoD updates. I really appreciate you going down that rabbit hole because, if I go down that rabbit hole, I am never coming back from that rabbit hole. Okay, so today's topic is claims. Damage and loss claims when you receive your household goods during a PCS. I unfortunately I have met 2 out of thousands. I have met 2 unicorns who have never experienced this after several moves. However, many of us, we don't really understand how that whole claims process works. If something gets damaged, God forbid, what's the process? How do we go through it? What's our right? What's our recourse? Well, we have an amazing guest today, and her name is Kira Floyd, and she is with TMM Inc., and she is the Director of Claims over there. So, Kira, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. So I have been working in military claims for the past 12 years for TMM. I'm the claims director, but I started in an administrative role. I did adjusting both in office and as a contractor. So I have handled that as well. We handle all types of claims in our office, up to and including catastrophic claims. I live in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, with my husband and 3 kids. I have never served in the military, but my father-in-law is retired Navy, and both my grandparents served in the military as well. And I really do appreciate the opportunity to get to help military families that are moving and not always in a location by choice. So my heart goes out to a lot of families and just the stress that moving takes a toll on them.
Awesome. Welcome. Very much so, Kira. So you said your husband's a Navy brat then, huh?
Yes.
Okay, we can shout out Navy, show some love, late Navy brat. What? Okay, sorry, Marine Corps here, but that's okay. Army right there, but no, I'm just kidding. Okay, so we've got so many questions, and you are here to provide us those answers, and we are so very grateful. My first question is, because it's been a minute, keep in mind that, just a little backstory on myself. When I PCS'd here to Quantico, Virginia, it had been 8 years. We spent 8 years at one duty station in Parris Island. So I kind of got dusty and I forgot about this whole claims process thing. I totally just, so can you tell me the difference? Because there's a lot of different claims. Can you tell me the difference between a quick claim, a regular claim, and an inconvenience claim?
Sure. So a quick claim is going to be for minor loss and damage that you might discover during the delivery process or maybe that evening. But it's for up to $500. It just allows for a quick resolution for a claim when it's just a minor issue. A regular claim that you're talking about is a DPS claim most of the time, unless you're getting a waiver. And that's for any other household goods claim that you're going to file. Your inconvenience claim is going to be for reimbursement of out-of-pocket expenses that are going to be related to a delay, either from the pickup or from delivery.
Okay, and can you give me an example of what that might look like as far as inconvenience?
So if your shipment is going to miss your RDD or required delivery date, you may incur expenses related to that delay. So if your shipment isn't arriving in time, and you weren't expecting to not be without it, you might need air mattresses. You may need to eat out if you don't have your pots and pans. So there are a couple of different methods on how they might go about doing it, but that's what those claims are for. And they're separate and apart from your household goods damage claims.
Gotcha.
So talking about the different types of claims, we know that there's often timelines associated with them. So what are those timelines for a quick claim versus a timeline for the regular DPS claim?
So it's 5 days for the quick claims, and that's from your delivery date. So those get processed right away. We have to be notified them, and then we get those processed for you within 5 days of your delivery. And then for your regular claims, with the new 2020 regulation updates, those timelines have changed a little bit. It used to be 60 days for initial offer on all claims, Now it's going to be 30 days for claims up to $1,000, and then still the 60 days for your regular claims over $1,000. Those are just your maximum government timeframes, though, remember. So that doesn't mean that your claim's necessarily going to take that long. That's just what the government says. You have to make sure that we get those claims settled within that amount of time.
No, totally makes sense. And just for the audience purview, I see some questions coming in. Daisy, I'm looking at you. We are going to get to you. So we're going to try and run through some of these questions just in case the answer that you're looking for happens to be the ones we're asking. But no matter what, we're going to get to it at the end. And even if we don't get it to it at the end, we have constant contact here with Megan, and Kara has so graciously allowed us to be able to follow up with her as well. But we will be asking her question. Daisy, I'm looking at you. I see you, sister. Okay. So what kind of criteria needs to be met in order to have an inconvenience claim? Like how are those supposed to be like filed?
So from an eligibility standpoint, you meet the criteria if your shipment is either missed the pickup or missed the required delivery date. It could also be for if they miss the agreed upon delivery date. So if something gets changed, that may end up having an impact on you. And also for delivery out of storage, once you request that delivery, there's now a 5-day and 10-day, depending on if it's peak season or non-peak season, for them to get that shipment delivered to you. If they're not able to, you may be eligible for one on that as well. There's 2 methods for filing now. The 2020 regulation updates allow now for a non-receipt based inconvenience claim, which can be processed just for the service member only. So that doesn't extend to the whole family. It's just for the service members per diem, and it's up to a maximum of 7 days. And that doesn't mean that that's all you're eligible for. That's just another option for those families or that service member that maybe wasn't keeping a hold of all his receipts. And so now he has a quicker method to be able to recoup those expenses. You can still file, though, anything that's going to be beyond that or something that maybe is for an extended family. You can still file that the normal traditional way with receipts for reimbursement. It depends on the company how exactly you file. We typically use an 1844 form, which is actually the claim form for a household goods damage claim, but there's not really a form, so we just use it for ease. But some, you may just have an email, something in writing to accompany those receipts.
So it's interesting. I just have a quick follow-up on that. So the service member has to be the one to turn in the receipts and be dealt with as far as the claim, the inconvenience claim, right?
I mean, we'll certainly talk to the spouses as well. On
the only reason I ask is because I can't tell you how many of us have PCS on our own, and that sucks. So in cases like that, what recourse do we have if our service member isn't with us?
You can still file. You just have to be on the PCS orders to be included. So if you're not traveling as a dependent on that order, you might not actually be eligible. But as long as you're on those orders, the communication for that can certainly be done. It does need to be in the destination area, though. So if you are not in that destination area with your spouse and you're just traveling, you wouldn't be eligible for that. You actually have to be at destination as well.
Tracking. Cool.
So now, as families start to receive their household goods, and we're seeing a lot of this now, people are getting their shipments finally, having moved and been held up during this crazy, weird year that we have. So if a family, their household goods are getting delivered and they're noticing stuff coming off their truck that's damaged, boxes that might be smashed, or there might be a box that didn't get checked off on their inventory, what steps does a family need to take during the delivery phase of their move for their claim?
Yeah, during the delivery process, there's a joint form called a notification of loss and damage at delivery form. It's for both you and for the mover, but it is a form for you. So you can put all of that on that form. If you run out of room on the front page, you can use the back page, or if you need supplemental, it just has to be written notification. So they'll typically have something on hand. They may not have an extra notification of loss and damage form for you. But I've seen it even on a piece of paper if you need that extra room.
So to follow up with that, if say the moving crew for the driver, whoever's in charge that day, forgets, to give the family this form, or the family, it's their first time PCSing and they're not aware that this form exists and they need to fill it out. And they don't do that on delivery, but they notice, their bed was chipped or cracked later. Can they still file their claim, or are they going to be out of luck because they didn't do the notice of loss and damage at delivery?
No, it doesn't need to be noted at time of delivery. Service members have now, with the 2020 changes, 180 days for notification of loss and damage. And that's for shipments that are picked up 5/15 or after. So if you have a shipment that maybe is delivering out of storage that was picked up prior to 5/15, it would be the 75 days traditional notification period. But right now it's 180 days for those newer shipments that are moving. And you can do that either by going and logging into DPS to file a notice of loss and damage report, or you can use that back side of that form if you didn't fill it out at delivery, and you can submit that electronically, fax, mail. Most members end up actually just filing a claim that serves as your notification. It's kind of the substitute of that, and most claims end up getting filed in that time period.
You know what? Can I just stop here for a second and let's just recognize Megan, ever-loving Harless, our resident BA, was one of the many, she was one of the factors in actually helping to make this happen, okay? Can I just say that? Can I just put that out there in real time? Because let me tell you, the second that I moved to a new duty station, my husband was out the door. He was gone. I didn't see him. So guess what? 75 days, and I have to do the whole claims thing, and I'm like, again, I was rusty. So yeah, it didn't really happen the way it should have. And that most of it was on me. And so I'm really, really happy to know that we've got people like Megan in our corner. Because now we have 180 days. That's 6 whole months. We'll find some nugget of time at some point to nail our service member down. It's just this nugget of time is all we need.
Yeah.
And I kind of really like that because, Murphy tends to insert himself, especially right before and or after a PCS. Just saying. So that's awesome.
So that was one of the things when that change with Transcom went into effect, is that we, realizing, that life happens with families, especially, when they PCS, they arrive at their duty station, our spouses, they're preparing for deployment to go to one of the training centers on a rotation, or going TDY somewhere, or field time. Life happens. And so a lot of times it's left to the spouse and the family. And depending on where you move during that summertime peak season, now you're trying to get your kids started in school, you're trying to get back into the workforce. A lot of stuff happens. And so, we wanted to be able to do something that gave families a little bit more time to get through and to, unpack their things. And, some of that is, when we think about our holiday decorations, nobody's unwrapping every single ornament that they have in the middle of July to ensure that things are okay. So that gives us a little more time to get into some of that holiday time where you can, thoroughly check and make sure your stuff did arrive safely as it should have.
For sure. Especially, just for the record, Megan has already smacked my hand on this. For people like me who have left boxes unopened after long periods of after a PCS, my bad. We'll never make that mistake again. But Megan smacked my hand already. And so for those of us who are procrastinators, I'm not saying this is giving you more time. I'm a procrastinator. Don't wait till day 179.
Yes.
But it gives you a minute to process. So speaking of which, Kira, let's say I had you here. I had you to help me through this mess when I first PCS after 8 years. What is it, if I did have to file a claim, when I did have to file a claim, what information would you tell me that I needed?
First, I tell you to make sure that you have your DPS login information, because when you sit down to go to file, you're definitely going to need that. You're going to want to probably have a copy of your inventory handy, because you're going to want to know the item, a general description of what that item name is, the inventory number. You're going to want a claimed amount. And those are kind of the requirements for filing. But to be honest, if I were giving you advice on filing, I'd also tell you to submit as much information about your items as you can, if you're able to do that. Make, model, substantiation of value, any documentation really helps your adjuster to make a more accurate offer to you initially. So if you claim a dresser, it's a lot harder to find a way to get you fully made whole again. If you tell us that you purchased that dresser from Ashley Furniture and you give us the name of that dresser, we're going to be able to do a better job to track that item down for you. Or if it's missing pieces, we're going to be able to contact the manufacturer for parts for you. So if you're able to do that when you file, that's certainly going to help a lot as well.
Okay.
So we get to the point, you know, my stuff arrived, I had some damage, I filed my claim with all the information that you asked. What happens next in the process?
Well, there's always going to be an acknowledgement of your claim. There's going to be an email or a call to you to let you know that they did get the claim. If you have included everything that may be needed in your claim, you've posted photos, you've submitted some documentation, maybe some link for your higher dollar items, sometimes your claim just gets settled right away. So the more information you have in there, the better, because that's just a rapid settlement of your claim. If it doesn't have all that information, someone's going to reach out to you for either photos, or they're going to let you know if you have some furniture items that we might be setting up an inspection for your goods. That's when someone either is going to come to your residence to do an inspection, or in this COVID times, we've transitioned a lot to virtual inspections, just for the comfortability of families who don't maybe want a stranger coming into their homes. And we all recognize that was definitely a viable concern. So we've done a lot of virtual inspections as well. Once we get all of that information, the adjuster will put together an offer and then send you an offer. Our company does that via email. Those offers are also posted up into DPS, but typically we'll send you a letter, because that will give you a little bit more information about what those offers actually represent. You can see a dollar amount in DPS, but you might not know exactly what you're being offered.
Got you. And we actually have a follow-up question on that from a viewer. Hey, Andrea, thanks for watching. Shout out. So Andrea said, you can never upload images initially, so follow-up pictures need to be sent. Is this something that's changing?
So I was going to say, DPS we know is a beast to work with. It's sometimes not very user-friendly. It's you spend an hour trying to log in, you get kicked off. There's time limits on things sometimes. So it definitely is a very hard system to use sometimes, and Transcom has acknowledged that, and I think the moving industry and everybody has really acknowledged that DPS is a beast to work with sometimes. Pictures is always a struggle as well, and so I just want to give advice from the spouse side. Some of the things that I've seen that have worked really well, all those individual pictures we take the time uploading, sometimes they don't attach, sometimes we have to go back and re-add them. I've seen the most useful thing be where you either add those pictures into a Word document or a PowerPoint, and then you can add descriptions on each slide or underneath each picture. And if you upload it as a Word document or as a PowerPoint, it has a much better probability of sticking to the file and sticking as being uploaded than just individual pictures. But Transcom has acknowledged that it is an issue. It's something that we bring up regularly through our monthly meetings with Transcom about, DPS, something should be done. It needs to be upgraded. And hopefully coming down the pipe in the next, year, 2 years or so, we should hopefully see some better technology coming out. But that's not really something that's going to change in the next couple of months.
Word. Okay. So I really like that. You're talking about like copying the picture and.
So just take your picture, add it to a Word document or upload it as an image on a PowerPoint presentation, so you can put it there, and then you can be able to add captions to that slide or underneath the picture too, to say, hey, this was, the Ashley Furniture dresser that was damaged, that was chipped on the bottom left corner. Here's a picture of the whole dresser. Here's the close-up of the actual damage.
Awesome. Just throwing up a few of these shout outs here. SMART. Sorry, Simpsons fan here. Okay. So Kira, here's a really big meat and potatoes question for you. This is kind of something that many of us have experienced, okay? A lot of families struggle with their claims adjuster, okay, over similar or like items, whether that's brand comparisons or on value, like sale versus regular price, or on finding items on eBay or Facebook Marketplace versus a big box store. For families facing those issues in this claims process, what advice would you give them for these particular types of issues?
Yeah, I'd say over the years, when I actually talked to someone about their experience, it wasn't that they were having a problem with their adjuster through the whole process. It's just the initial offer. And again, that really goes back to not having the information up front as to what your item was or anything to substantiate the value of that piece. There are some items that are marketed on sale. That's just the advertisement world, how they choose to sell things. So in particular, like mattresses and TVs are just always on sale. That's just how they're marked up to be marked down, particularly mattresses. So sometimes you may get a sale price on an item. If you go to find that item's actually not on sale, certainly contact back. But most of the time, those sales are just always a sale. As far as the EB or marketplace or any kind of secondary market, that's only allowed for specific items. Pianos, boats, organs, watercrafts. Sometimes collectibles that can no longer be purchased might be included in that, but it's not for all items. So they can't offer you a bookcase and make you take that. However, if they are allowed to replace the item if you agree on the replacement. So they could certainly offer that to you, but that doesn't mean as a service member you have to accept their offer.
So are we at risk then if we don't accept the offer to get something that isn't comparable to whatever was lost or damaged?
No, so if you aren't as in agreement with your initial offer, you would go back to the TSP, or that would be my recommendation. Go back to the TSP first, give them an opportunity maybe to review the information that you want to present to them, typically that value, and let them take a look at it. If you really go through a dispute resolution process and you can't come to a resolution, I would then recommend you transfer that to your military claims office. There are going to be some times where we're just not able to meet a customer's expectations. It's happened to me all the time, and particularly with TVs. People bought plasma TVs at one point for an extraordinary amount of money, and then plasma just didn't work out. So the plasma TV replacement cost is nothing in comparison to what that service member paid for it, and we're not able to agree on that. Unfortunately, in those cases, we're not going to be able to do any better for you, so we might tell you at that point that we probably recommend you seeing the military claims office. Sometimes we see those members come right back to us and decide that they do want to take our offer, and we're always kind of willing to reopen that and revisit it with the customer.
So I have a quick follow-up to that. So say there's an item and me and you cannot agree on the price of it because it's a sale price, and I'm worried by the time I get the check from you, that sale price is going to be different because it says, it ends on Monday or ends on Tuesday. Can the customer ask their TSPS, their claims adjuster, well, can you go ahead and just order that item for me on that sale price, and we can just check it off as, agreed upon then? So that way, I can ensure that I'm getting it for the price that you're offering.
Yeah, a few things can happen. You can just ask them to give you the regular price and not the sale price. They can then offer you to replace that item or purchase it for you. They don't have to do that. You can ask them. The TSP does have the option on whether or not they will do that for you. But if they're not going to do that for them, then I'd probably be asking them for the replacement cost then at the regular value, because you do want to be able to be made whole. You shouldn't be given the sale price and then turn around and not be able to replace that item. You're entitled to replacement cost at destination. I know for our company, we want to make sure that that's what you're able to do.
Right. So moving on, we know a couple of times a year, unfortunately, catastrophic losses do happen, whether it's through a truck fire or some other means. Life happens. It's an unfortunate situation. So if a family is facing the time where they are facing a catastrophic loss for some reason, what should a family be doing during this situation? What is the process for that catastrophic loss that they should know about, working with their claims adjuster and their transportation service provider?
Yeah, so a catastrophic claim is technically when 60% or more of the shipment is lost or destroyed. That doesn't mean affected, it means lost or completely destroyed. So there may be shipments that have 60% that may have some damage associated with it, but it's not necessarily destroyed. A TSP can make a designation on the shipment. Once that catastrophic designation is made, the service member is eligible for a 10% prepayment towards their claim. That prepayment is going to get deducted from whatever that final payment might be. If the claim or if the situation is a van fire, sometimes that shipment may be deemed a total loss, which is that everything is destroyed. The fire destroyed everything. And that shipment's not going to continue on to destination. But if it's not destroyed, that shipment still is going to come and continue on to the destination residence, or at least to the destination area. In both cases, a claim will need to be filed, but on most of those, the service member is going to get a DPS waiver so that they don't have to file on that system. We can kind of handle it outside of the system. And depending on who you're working with, we'll try to make efforts to make that filing process a little bit easier. The people that I've worked with, I'll generally tell them, don't worry about itemizing everything that was in the boxes. Try to think about what the value is for all of those items on it, so that especially on those shipments where the whole thing is destroyed, they're not trying to itemize every single, fork in there, or spatula or glass or everything in their home. That would be extraordinarily time consuming and difficult. So we certainly want to try to make that process easier. But it is a process.
Yeah. Well, definitely a process, but just a quick question kind of on so if it's not everything, like if it's not a total loss and some stuff is damaged, but not all of it, are you guys going to bring us all of the things for us? Do we have to go through the stuff and throw all this stuff away, or figure out what is okay to keep and what is not? Like, I only ask because I have heard the horror stories a few times, this particular one where it's not completely damaged, it's not all damaged, and the next thing you know, they're bringing the damaged goods along with whatever's salvageable out of it and leaving it there, for the family to have to get rid of. You know what I'm saying?
It will go to
practice. What's the standard, I guess?
Yeah, if the shipment is damaged, you're still going to end up with that shipment, just like you would with any kind of item that ended up being damaged. So if there's mold, you don't have to, you can refuse that, but you can't necessarily refuse an item because it's damaged. There certainly could be help through the claims process, or even after the claims process kind of gets started, with taking some of those items. Recently, we worked with a service member. The shipment was delivered. It wasn't, it ended up not being a full total loss, so it did end up going to residents. We had an inspector kind of help take some of those items with them during that inspection process. That was that particular claim. That doesn't mean that that's what happens all the time, but we're always trying to kind of figure out what we can do to make the process a little bit smoother for the service member, especially on those kind of claims like a catastrophic loss.
Got you. And really quick, I guess I'm not entirely sure what she might mean by this, but Andrea, shout out again, girl, you on fire. So do you have to have the receipt to get the taxes?
Yes. So there is, the TSP is only responsible for up to $10 for taxes without receipts. So it is reimbursed once it's an incurred expense. So if we do give you the replacement cost of an item, you do go purchase that specific item, you can submit your receipt, and then they will reimburse you at that point for taxes, in addition to shipping as well.
I'd say that's in the regulations, and we'll drop the link for that there in the comments. That way you guys can go back and look at it and read that wording yourself. But once you show, as Kira said, once you show proof that you did order it and that you did repurchase it and didn't just pocket that money, you can be reimbursed for the additional amount.
Cool. Okay. So you've helped me out, Kira. I've done everything you told me to do. I've done everything Megan's told me to do. I filed the claim. What happens once a claim is settled, and how long until a check is sent?
So payments are processed within 30 days of acceptance. Again, though, that is the maximum time frame the government allows. Typically, it does not take that long. I will say that part of the DPS system is that it doesn't readily give notification when a service member is accepting, especially if they're not accepting it the right way, meaning that they're not accepting all items and then they're not updating the status of their claim. So sometimes a member goes in there, they have 10 items claimed, they go in, they accept line 1, and they leave everything else alone. If you will let your adjuster know that you've accepted, that also is greatly going to speed up the time frame to process it. Because as soon as we have that notification, we can get the ball rolling with getting that check processed.
Okay. And how often do TSPs exercise their salvage rights?
So it will really depend. So a customer, if they want to release an item for salvage because they want to get the full value replacement cost for the item, a TSP will pick that up depending on the time of year, the location, or what the item is. I say time of year because in Alaska, there's no one salvaging items in the winter. You're lucky if you can get out to a residence during the winter. So you're probably not going to see anyone salvaging that time of year. But even in the summertime too, it sometimes does get a little bit too busy. Then unfortunately, the agents just don't have the time because they're trying to get the service members shipments delivered, and that obviously is our first course of action. So salvage sometimes doesn't end up happening.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have a couple questions, and I think this one I'm just gonna. So Sheila asked, and I think this was in reference to the whole tax question. How is that claimed? Is it by email or is it a separate form?
Yeah, email should be fine. I mean, you could certainly fill out an 1844 form with anything just to attach it to something, but an email with the receipt is generally going to be enough.
I would say in my experience, it was that same way. I just emailed back my move coordinator and I was just like, hey, Lindsay, we repurchased this item. Here's the screenshot of our Amazon receipt that shows, the taxes that were collected on it. And they sent me another tiny little check to cover it.
Gotcha. And shout out Sheila for that awesome question, by the way, and then, all right, let me take care of Sharon's question. And then I think you've got one, Megan. Okay. So Sharon, shout out Sharon. We are PCSing Oconus to Alaska, where items are generally, marked up in price due to shipping. Would we be offered an amount on an item that reflects that price?
Yes, but sometimes you may not be offered that up front. Sometimes some items get shipped to Alaska, sometimes they don't. Your adjuster may not have gone through the process of just determining if everything was shippable, was able to be shipped. That's not something that I'd say that we're doing on every single item within the claim. So if that's the case, just let your adjuster know that that's the case. Let them know maybe either a screenshot on item locally or something in your cart that shows that. If it's shipping, again, that is an incurred expense, even in Alaska. They might be willing to make some exceptions on that. But typically especially if it's going to be really a large shipping cost, like sometimes it's $200, I will typically tell the shipper to go out and find something local in their destination area. It may cost a little bit more local from a store, and we'd be happy to kind of entertain that value and adjust the offer accordingly.
Got you. Shout out Sharon. Thank you for that question, because you're probably not the only person to be asking that right now. Megan, you want to go ahead with that other one?
Yeah, so going back to Daisy's question earlier, it is a long question, so it's not going to fit up on our screen. So I'm going to go ahead and read it.
You wouldn't be able to see all of our lovely faces.
Of course. So I'm going to go ahead and read it from my phone. And I believe this is directed for you, Kira. So Daisy says, so our stuff was picked up in Colorado July 6th and was supposed to head to Kansas to our retirement duty station that following Monday. I guess they ended up unloading at the warehouse and then reloading as much as they could in another truck. We got about half of our stuff delivered so far, literally half a table, half a bunk bed, half of an end table, headboards, footboards, but no rails. So now we've been waiting for our overflow for over a month. Our RDD was August 6th. We still have zero idea when they will deliver our overflow. They keep changing the date that it is supposed to leave from the warehouse. I'm starting to wonder if our stuff is lost and they're just not willing to tell us that. So my question is, how long after our RDD can we file a loss claim?
Well, As far as filing, it will probably end up actually depending on if your shipment has been considered to be delivered or not at this point. You may need to work with your transportation office on that. If there is an overflow that they have identified that it is in progress, then you won't have a delivered shipment, but most of the time you're not going to have a company saying that they found something that they didn't. So they probably do have the shipment. But the shipment does have to be delivered in the system for you to be able to file.
So a follow-up for Daisy, because I'm trying to imagine myself in your position, Daisy. So if I only have pieces of my bed and not a full bed, and they're still waiting on the supposed overflow shipment, could her family be eligible for an inconvenience claim for any of that, for not having their full bed sets or anything that might still be missing in that second shipment?
It will really depend, because your eligibility at that point would be for an air mattress, but if you have the mattresses, not having the bed frame might not be the eligibility. And the inconvenience is for a temporary replacement. It's not for replacement. So it's not for you to go out and repurchase all the parts that might be in your overflow. So it might be a bed frame. So one of those metal bed frames to get your mattress up off the floor might be something that is considered. If you have your pots and pans, though, you're not going to be considered for an inconvenience claim. So I guess it's going to really depend on what exactly is in your overflow. Like you kind of mentioned on the beginning of the call, some situations are unique only to that particular one. So it really depends on all of the situations. I'd reach out to your move coordinator, though. They're usually going to be able to provide you the best information in regards to your shipment and the delivery of that. Unfortunately, claims can't help with that part. We only kind of help out once it is actually a claim.
Okay.
And
so
again, the chain of command can also maybe help.
Yeah. So I'd say, Daisy, if you're still watching us, follow up. Reach out, as Kara said, to your move coordinator first. See if you can get an update with them, your local transportation office, to see, if they need to get involved. If you're not getting response from anybody and you're still kind of left hanging, go ahead and message the page to PCS grades. MJ will get me in touch with you, and we can reach through my Transcom channels if we need to see if we can get you some resolution on finding out if that shipment is really there and they're just trying to find a driver to deliver it to you, or if there really is something else going on there. But start with your move coordinator, start with your local office first, and see what kind of resolution you can get through there to start with.
Word. Daisy, and yeah, either way, no matter what route you take, please let us know how things are going. We would love that feedback, because again, just like Megan said, she can push that up to Transcom so that they can be aware of issues that certain families might be experiencing, just in case, to have it on the radar if there's some sort of trend going on or whatnot. But yes, definitely let us know how it goes. We have another question. Andrea, you're on fire, girl. So if I make a claim for $500 item and buy a new one, but taxes make it more, don't you sign something that says you're done with your claim once you get your check?
You are done with those items, but because the coverage says that taxes and shipping are an incurred expense, you can only accept that after you've purchased it. So no, you're not limited on that item. You're still eligible to reimburse. And if your TSP is telling you that that's not the case, you should probably go to your military claims office.
Gotcha. And then she said, again, Andrea, oh my gosh, girl, you win the internet today, Andrea. Andrea wins the internet today. Woo! Is it based on what you say you have? Because I've received 50 boxes labeled garage supplies, no matter what was in the box.
Is what?
Like if everything that's in the box, like in the boxes, don't itemize, don't try and think each and every thing. Is it based on what you say that you have inside the box? If every box, like if you have 50 boxes that are just labeled garage supplies and that's it.
Is the claim based on that?
Is that what you mean, Andrea? Is the claim based on what you say is in the box? Or are you, what do you mean by that? And she's probably going to be typing an answer here shortly. Because I guess, yeah, I guess that's happened to me where I've opened a box that says garage supplies and like all my pictures are in there. And I'm like, I don't even remember having these at all, let alone in the garage. Okay. But because it was in the car hole, which is what my husband calls a garage. Shout out, hubby. I know you're watching. Because it was in the car hole, it was labeled garage. And Andrea said she was referring to Daisy. So yeah, okay. So she was in response to Daisy. I'm tracking. See here, I bet you responded to Daisy's post, and what we see is just everybody's comments. So that is something that I'll be monitoring. Thank you, Andrea, again, because you just helped us identify a tech thing. Thank you. Oh my gosh, we need to just send you something. Girl, message the PCS grades page with your email address, please. I'm going to send you a little something. Okay. I think there was, and Daisy did get back to us. She wanted to say thanks, and we've talked to our coordinator already. She has no updates yet. We're going to reach out to our transportation office today to see what the deal is. That's awesome. That is awesome. And Daisy, please keep us all up to date because inquiring minds want to know. Okay. And you know what? We had a very, very engaging group today. Very, very awesome. So just before we kind of like wrap things up, Kira, you've worked with military families for a really long time. I would love to know kind of any advice or maybe trends that you notice, maybe a heads up that you want to give to military families for the future as they're PCSing. What's the things that you've noticed the most and that you just want to tell them?
I don't know. I think probably I'd like to just let them all know that it's not going to be as bad as you think it is. Because I think that's sometimes what families go in. They go in expecting that it's going to be a really bad process. It's going to be really horrible. They've heard all the horror stories. But most of the time, it's really not that way. I know everybody on my staff is really just eager to help the service member. We really want to make them whole. We want to make it easier. But we are trying to get through everything as quickly as we can, because one of the things we hear most from customers is they want a resolution faster. They want their claim settled faster. They want their money faster. So in an effort to do that, we really have to kind of go through what information we have at that time to get someone an answer. And so don't expect that first initial offer is your offer and that's the settlement on your claim. It may be because we just don't have all the right information. So get with your adjuster, provide them with that information that might help clarify. It's not going to be as bad as you think it is. Most members are really happily and pleasantly surprised. They file their claim and all of a sudden a check shows up in the mail, or they get their offer letter, they settle it, they get a check within the week. It's really, most of the time, it's a really simple process.
Got you. Okay. And we really appreciate that feedback because, yes, we've all experienced these horror stories. Again, I only know those 2 unicorns that never experienced it. The onus is also on us. Like, no matter what, like a PCS doesn't have to be a pretty crappy situation. We are by nature planners. We are contingencies for contingencies. Like we have those, we own those. But like sometimes the onus is on us to document because it makes everything easier on the back end. Okay, before we go, really quick, Sheila, I had a quick question for boxes that were reported as missing at delivery. Should we be submitting receipts right away for items we know were in the box? They were vaguely labeled, but from our video inventory, we know what was in the totes, or does that come later?
The more information you can provide up front, the better, but you can also provide that information later. So we'll leave it up to the customer. You certainly want to make it a process that works for you.
Mm-hmm. And I've got one more quick question before we finish for the day, MJ. So some people, working with their claims adjuster, they struggle with communication with them. They file their claim, they might hear back within that first 30 days, but then it feels like radio silence for the next 2 to 3 months. Somebody that's having those communication issues with their claims adjuster, what steps should they take or who should they reach out to try to get some sort of update to ensure that their claim isn't being lost in the cracks somewhere?
Definitely call or email. Most companies are either have a generalized claims email. So if you're not getting responses from your particular adjuster, maybe send something to the general claims email, or call and ask to speak to a supervisor or manager so that we can make sure that everything is on track for you, and maybe explain to you why there may be a delay or what to kind of expect. Supervisors and managers are usually good at helping take the time to explain why something is happening, whereas an adjuster is just trying to kind of get through, get the claims settled, get everyone taken care of. So sometimes they might not provide that kind of level of response that you might get from a supervisor or manager.
Yeah.
Word. And I really just think that this is totally appropriate with Jamie. This too shall PCS. Absolutely. Yes, Jamie, nail, meat, head. Yes. Okay, well, thank you so much, Kira, for coming on here and listening and taking us. Man, she took this like a champ. She had it on lock with a smile, y'all. And again, if you have any questions, if you're watching the replay, please leave those comments or questions in the comment section below. We will be keeping in touch with Kira. And of course, we always have our BA Megan, and we've got your back. But until next week, this too shall PCS. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.